Welcome to my presentation. So here is my presentation about exercise. I wish this thing would actually load. Okay, so here's the first circle, I guess you could call it, early life and exercise. Let's see. Oh boy, a quick note. Something about the way that the title of this was phrased may give one the impression that I am going to be talking about my life in general. But I'm cognizant of the fact, I shouldn't have done that, that no one watching this presentation will have much desire to hear about me discussing or whining about my upper middle class upbringing in North Carolina, in which the worst tragedies of my upbringing were having two of my grandparents die and having a dog, who somehow lived to be 17 years of age, pretty long, die, and in 2016 having another dog die at the age of 10. Younger than average, but not that much of an anomaly. So yeah, not a very difficult upbringing for me, especially not when juxtaposed with that of other upbringings. So I will try to ensure that you don't slowly die of boredom. Although when I get typing paragraphs, the words tend to come out fast, so I might find that I would type way more than I need to. I end up doing just that. Anyways, I hope that I can at least somewhat entertain you throughout the course of this presentation. Okay. Slowly dying of boredom. Hopefully you won't be by the end of this presentation, but okay. Back when I was 8, in 3rd grade, I can recall my class being asked to run the mile. Because I had been sick for 2 entire weeks the semester prior with the swine flu, which was all the rage back in the ancient year of 2009, I didn't get the chance to run the mile, so this was my first experience doing so. We had to run 8 laps around the field, which is about half the size of a football field. The first trip around the track was fine until I suddenly began to lose momentum. As every single other classmate passed me, I was simply walking, mixed in with the occasional bursts of jogging. When I got to the finish, I can remember hearing that it had taken me 15 minutes to get to the end. The time wasn't really what bothered me, though. It was the fact that literally everybody else in the class had finished in front of me. I can remember expressing my frustration with this result pretty vividly. Some of my classmates did their best to calm me down. "You were sick last year, so of course you did worse," one of them said, in a futile attempt to change my mind about myself. Okay, maybe this helped a little, but thunderstorms, so if you hear that, just try to ignore it. So where was I? Futile attempt to change my mind about myself. Okay, maybe this helped a little, but it still didn't detract from the fact that I could not help but loathe myself for my 15-minute mile in that moment. What did this do for me with regards to exercise? Well, it initially turned me away from exercise, since my view was that since I was by my nature less athletic than average, and I probably was, that I just wasn't made out for it. And then here's some pictures on the side, and then a great quote from Ian Walmuke, myself, 2017. Okay, in the beginning. So, but Ian, you stated that you wouldn't ramble on about your early life so much. Okay, fine, I hear you. Let me get this out of the way so that we can move on to the more interesting nuances of this presentation. So, as I was saying, that experience with the mile likely helped me turn me away from exercise for a while. I tried competitive sports such as flag football, but I really need to move the mouse. Well, okay, that's, I guess I'm going to have to keep it there. Okay, I tried competitive sports such as flag football, but the only thing those seem to do is frustrate the living daylights out of me. If you're wondering why I always seem to react this way, and why I sometimes still do, to be honest, to these situations, most of it probably boils down to genetics. I mean, when I was 3, I got mad at myself because I didn't know how to sing a Spanish hymn when visiting a school because all the other kids were singing it. I did this even though there was no way in hell I could have known how to sing something I hadn't been taught yet. But anyway, around this time, I started gaining weight. I was moderately overweight for a while. This wasn't as much due to my metabolism rate, it was more due to my excessive liking for a few somewhat unhealthy snacks, such as jalapeno pretzels. I still eat them today, but I make sure to do it in moderation, which, to be honest, I didn't really know how to do back in elementary school and early on in middle school. Early in 7th grade, in late 2013, I decided that I was fed up with being overweight. And I was pretty fed up before that, but this was kind of the tipping point. But I didn't really want to exercise much, so what I did instead was this. I cut out jalapeno pretzels from my diet completely. Not much of a diet, but the only thing I would eat for a snack was 100 to 200 calories per day of pop chips, which are non-fried potato chips. I still sometimes eat them today. Within just a few months, I dropped from being 115 pounds to being 90 to 95 pounds, which was a healthy weight for my age. And yeah, do pick up the pace of the presentation. I'll try. Moving along, Okay. No doubt, the weight loss was definitely something that I was proud of, at least temporarily. Well, it wasn't until early 2016 that I realized that if I was going to become physically healthy, I would need to work towards getting myself in good shape, in some form. This meant that I would have to exercise regularly. By this point, I still wasn't very interested in competitive sports. I swam some from 2013 to 2015 on a swim team, but I wasn't really physically active aside from that. It wasn't until about 1 year ago that I realized that I would need to engage in some sort of consistent physical activity. So that's exactly what I did. In May of 2016, I started biking for at least 30 minutes almost every day, most days. And I also started walking my dog for approximately 30 minutes just about every day. One might not consider this intense physical activity. It wasn't, but it was a good start, and I was well aware of this at the time. In November of 2016, after about 6 months of consistent exercise, my dad suggested that we get a membership at our local gym. I accepted the offer. On November 19th, 2016, I went to the gym for the first time. And sorry, grammar errors kind of irritate me, so I had to point that out there. It's with an apostrophe. Okay, exercise routine. The first day of exercising was a rather interesting experience. Getting into the gym, my first priority was essentially to push as hard as I possibly could, particularly while running. The first day, the sounds that I was making toward the end of my 40-minute run in the gym were probably somewhat reminiscent of that of the sounds that a marathon runner would make after running in a competitive marathon. So I was going pretty hard on myself. After a few days, I eased up on this a bit, realizing that making exercising that painful was likely to create more problems than it was likely to solve. Also, not fun. I mean, who really wants to go every day and exercise for that long? But anyways, the American Heart Association advises that while exercising, it is best to stay within 50 to 85% of your maximum heart rate. The machine that I commonly use for running, the elliptical, can track your heart rate. Well, I was unaware of this at the time, but I guessed that I was probably fairly consistently running above 85% of my maximum heart rate, which, according to the American Heart Association, can result in heart problems down the line, although who knows how accurate this is. Athletes do this all the time. Now, I generally run within 75 to 85% of my target heart rate when exercising. So, exercise routine. As of June 2017, now, I go to the gym 4 to 5 days a week, although I'll be the first to admit that I could go more frequently, especially given my fairly relaxed schedule. And frankly, I think I've been a bit too critical of myself, which I kind of was right there, which is a big reason that I don't want to go to the gym as frequently as I might want to. I'm working on finding the authentic motivation to go every day as opposed to being semi-neurotic about the whole thing. If I don't go one day, it shouldn't be a big deal at all. You know, sometimes I'm like, Ian, you didn't go to the gym today. It's the critic inside me that sometimes gets a little pesky, but either way. So now that you've tuned out my presentation, well, hopefully you haven't, I don't know, but you're probably wondering how much I can lift. Well, I mean, there's no way to quantify that. I use several different types of exercise equipment, and I wouldn't be able to name everything. And I lift different amounts of weight on each piece of equipment. For example, while I can only curl 15 reps straight of 45 pounds, I can bench press close to 120. Now, is that good for my, well, bench press, I don't think that would be accurate. I kind of mistyped it there. I use a machine where I basically lift, but I'm not actually bench pressing, so I can do about 15 reps of 120 on that, so that's a little bit inaccurate. Now, is that good for my age? Well, maybe not. I started off weaker than most males my age, and how much of this was due to genetics and how much was due to me just not engaging in many competitive sports before? Who knows? Who cares? My goal is to try to develop upper and lower body strength, as well as to tone up my muscles. And as I say, where you start isn't what's important. You can only focus on how much improvement occurs. And I mean, that's true in just about anything. If you start and you suck at it, it's not your fault. You just got to keep going. So... And, we're only on the third one. We still got some time. Okay, what's the point? If there were any questions in your mind while listening to this presentation, this probably wasn't the first one, or even a question at all. After all, we know what the point of exercising is, but here I'll provide you with some statistics about exercising that may convince you to start exercising frequently if you're not already. The first one that I point out is a 2011 report from the British medical journal, The Lancet, suggests that by the year 2030, half of all adults in the United States may be obese. Almost all of these adult individuals do not exercise regularly. Of course, that's to be expected. Many studies have shown that regular physical activity decreases the odds of dying from heart disease, as well as reducing the risk of aging-related diseases. There is evidence that suggests that exercise can decrease stress. According to the American Psychological Association, only 29% of those who go online to manage stress and 33% of those who watch TV or movies to manage stress say these techniques are very or extremely effective. It basically means that they're not. In my experience, they're not. In contrast, among adults who exercise to manage stress, 43%, should be more, 62% tout its effectiveness, and I agree. A study from Duke University in North Carolina suggests that exercise can help people cope with depression or symptoms of depression. The study randomized depressed patients to one of the interventions and found that after 4 months, about 40% of the subjects were no longer depressed. Those who exercised or received the medicine had higher and comparable response rates, but they were only slightly better than the placebo group. Those who exercised at a moderate level, about 40 minutes 3 to 5 days each week, experienced the greatest antidepressant effect. So they interpreted that to mean that exercise was just as good as medicine. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. How exercise has helped me personally, and probably the first thing you recognize was that child's face, because his eyes are like bulging up. They're like, but either way. Okay, you've cited a bunch of studies. How do you feel personally about exercise? Oh, me? You actually want to hear my opinion about how exercise has helped me personally? Oh, wow. Well, the rather amazing thing about exercise is that results start to accrue almost instantly once you start doing it regularly. Just in the first week of exercising regularly, I noticed that I started to feel more energetic. Your mood seems to improve almost instantly, and you will inevitably feel a sense of accomplishment from having exercised. You will notice a decrease in the amount of stress you experience as well. Now, if you're going to exercise frequently, same thing, it's a synonym, so it's going to require a bit of a time commitment, but that's nothing compared to everything you'll gain from exercising. I promise. I do. Okay. What is my specific exercise routine? As I've stated before, I don't usually go to the gym 7 days a week. However, I do generally have a specific routine for when I do go. Here are the specifics. 1. After arriving at the gym, I drink some water. Then I hit the weight room. I alternate between arm workouts and leg workouts on a daily basis. This means that if I do arm workouts one day, I will be doing leg workouts the next day. I generally do 3 or 4 iterations of 15 reps for each machine before switching to another machine. 2. After this, I drink some more water. I either use the elliptical or the treadmill, usually the elliptical. And for those of you who don't know, the elliptical is a machine where you move your arms and your legs and you run fast. So I don't really know what to compare it to, but I hope you get the point. Okay, I will run between 75 and 85% of my maximum heart rate for approximately 20 minutes. I will stop for about 3 minutes and get myself some water, and then I will go back to the elliptical or treadmill and run for another 20 minutes or so. Okay, so because the presentation was longer than YouTube wanted it to be, well, I mean, you can make videos as long as you want, as long as you're verified, but the account that I'm using to make this isn't verified, so I'm just going to go through quickly the conclusion and the ending. So the conclusion here, I accidentally went out, but anyways, so the conclusion here, so as I say here, this conclusion is going to be a bit more personal, and I say that I found that exercise itself epitomizes a lot of the things that we may want out of life. It's personally reasonable to want to be healthy, but with a lot of things, like with a lot of things in life, I'm beginning to realize that there's more to life than just achievement. I mean, if you want to achieve something, go after that thing to your heart's content, but basically what I say here is that it's a problem. Well, one problem I say is like with Western culture, I say we value doing things constantly. Either we're working or we're just doing something mindless rather than just being and like observing our inner world and the world around us. And so as I say, you have to genuinely want things in order to achieve them, and you cannot focus so much on like working hard, because in the end, working hard and not focusing on the amazing things present in every moment while you're in the middle of the process leads to stress and suffering. And so I'm beginning to realize that the point of exercise, along with a lot of other achievement-oriented things, is quite simple. It's not about achieving some goal in the future, it's about learning to enjoy the process and then allowing things to unfold as they will. And I go down, and I'll go down and say, as the author Vivian Green so wonderfully put it, life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, it's about learning to dance in the rain. We should all strive to do that in our lives. The end. Thank you so much for sticking with me throughout my presentation and the cut. I know that some parts were lengthy, but nonetheless, I still hope you got something from my presentation. And apologies for the crappy resolution on that picture.